Right. I've long had an interest in election integrity going back to the days when I was involved in state election law in the state of Wisconsin. And I can only imagine what I would do if I was a foreign country trying to influence our elections or make sure that the wrong person won elections. I'm going to ask you about some areas of election law that if I were trying to influence our elections, I might take advantage of. The first thing in Wisconsin, we finally passed a photo ID law last year, and I think the reason we had that is we want to make sure that the right person is voting. And if I was going to try to fix an election, I might try to get people to pretend they were somebody they were not. I know they have photo ID in Mexico, for example. Can you guys comment on, in your experience, how many states around the country have done what Mexico does or what Wisconsin does and has photo ID law? And if you're aware of any states that don't, why wouldn't they do that?
There are a number, I would have to get back with you on the exact number, but there are a number of states that have photo ID, and there's a number of states that do not. There are different aspects to verifying the person who is casting a ballot, but there are other ways that people are casting ballots. For instance, there are 3 states in our union that entirely vote by mail. That don't require you to send in your photo ID. But the Help America Vote Act has in it a provision that says that if you register to vote by mail for the first time, you have to submit some form of ID, whether or not that's a bill or electrical outlet, electrical bill or something to that. Or
why wouldn't you do it? It seems so basic. I always kind of question politicians who wouldn't do that. I mean, the same politicians who require photo ID for getting maybe life-saving drugs, a photo ID for a variety of other things. All of a sudden when it comes to elections, they say no. And I always kind of feel it opens up our elections to fraud. But does anybody, Ms. Toulouse-Oliver, do they have photo ID in New Mexico?
No, we don't.
Now, you must be familiar with Mexican law right across the border, is what I'm told, right? Do they have photo ID in Mexico?
I am not an expert on Mexican law, and unfortunately, I don't know, but I take your word for it.
Okay. Any reason why we don't do that simple thing to guard against nefarious influence in our elections?
The main reason is because we have a number of individuals within our state who, for one reason or another, do not have certain types of photo ID that might be required. For example, our tribal people in New Mexico don't have necessarily photo ID, don't necessarily want to utilize a photo ID, and we still want to provide the opportunity for them to participate in our elections.
Okay. I'm under the impression, I might be wrong, I'm under the impression from somebody who was Mexican that they handle it in Mexico, but okay. Next thing that concerns me, I always feel if I wanted to make sure if I wanted to fix an election, I want to have a lot of people not voting in person. You know, when you vote in person, at least you watch Glenn Grothman go in, he's the guy in there, nobody else is whispering in my ear. You do some early voting or absentee voting, you never know if somebody else is really filling out that form or who's filling out that form. Over time, and maybe Mr. Krebs, maybe Mr. Hicks would know, over time, have we had more people voting in a place in which we can see that they are not being influenced, nobody's whispering in their ear, we can watch who's filling it out, or over time have we had more people like early voting or voting by mail where who knows who's really filling out the ballot? And I would hope our goal would be over time more and more people would be voting where we have a government official, the local clerk, watching to make sure nobody else is following him in the booth and saying vote for Glenn Grothman, this or that. It seems like a good thing as we want to increase the integrity. Which way are we going in this country? Are we having more people in which the government official can watch? Are we having more people voting, you know, somewhere where who knows who's really filling out the ballot?
Well, Congressman, I believe that a number of our military and overseas voters vote not in person but by mail and so forth.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm not talking about the military. I'm saying across the board. Of all the people who voted, say, in the election in 2016 compared to 2008 or 1992? Which way are we going in this country? We have 4 experts here, so you can tell.
Every 2 years, the EAC publishes a document, the Election Administration Voting Survey, where we survey all the jurisdictions about the way that they vote. We can get you a copy of that, which will lay out all that information on who's voting where and how they're voting.
Does anybody know? Mr. Hatch, you must know. You are a county auditor there. You must know today compared to, say, how long you had your current job or how long you've been involved in elections down there in Utah?
About 7.5 years.
Okay, you must know. In the last, you must work with people around there longer than that. In the last 20 years, have gone up or down? Or we have more election security where we know that person is voting in the voting booth and nobody's whispering in their ear?
I can clearly and confidently speak about what's happened in Utah. Utah is virtually completely by mail state, although we do have vote centers available early as well as on election day. Anybody who votes by mail must sign the envelope, and we have human eyes look at every single signature before we allow that vote to be cast.
You know what the signature should be? Like if I moved to Utah, you know what Glenn Grothman's signature is and it wasn't somebody else's signature?
Yes. In order to register to vote, we will capture your signature.
Gentleman's time has expired.